Hey, everybody. I just realized I hadn't taken a look at the quiz for today, so we might not have a quiz today. Let me
I
see
am
what's on there.
okay with that. Please. Oh, there's a cat. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. And
Yes.
she's loud and obnoxious. Hey, sweetie.
Don't worry, I'm loud and obnoxious too.
All right, let me look at quiz 8 real quick. Oh no. We don't have a quiz today. It's asking about stuff about Redis. That's just not going to happen. I'm just going to make that quiz unpublished real quick. Oh, no quiz? I guess we don't have to be here today then. Bye. What the hell? Okay. Let me get my OBS stuff set up real quick. Yu-Gi-Oh packs? Nope. I do have 2 boxes of foil packs from like last year's Magic set. Well, probably like 3 years ago Magic set. I was gonna try and do some pull them live on stream. Hold on. They're old. Oh God, one of them's open. Yeah, I think I opened 1 or 2 of those. You know, I feel like I should do that on Twitch where I actually get real donations. What mythic am I looking for? Actually, I would just wanted to do like a draft tournament with some friends. Your best donation is giving. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's make sure I got all my stuff set up. Giving you an A. Yeah, you're going to have to earn that one. I could be the next. Moist critical? Okay, so I don't even know what that means. And I'm just going to pass that comment on by. Moving on. What are we going to do today? See, you're uncultured. Oh, okay. Streamer who opens Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know any good shops. I know a few people that buy stuff, but normally they buy stuff that's still in tournament rotation, not really the old stuff. I probably have about 5,000, 7,000 cards in a chest over there, plus that stuff. Oh yeah, none of my stuff is modern at all. Like I think I've started and stopped playing a couple of times over the years, like since like original freshman year of college is when I started collecting, and then stopped for a while. So that was like 2003, and then even got some old stuff from friends who were giving it up. So some of my stuff's even older than that. And the latest thing I've actually played is like oh God, Eldrazi. Yeah, I mean, I've looked up some of my cards. I mean, I even bought some cards when I was making a really bomb like black vampire deck. I bought a few cards, and they aren't like still in mint condition packs because like why the hell do you buy Magic cards if you're not going to play with them? So I mean, it's probably worth like $500 to $700 if I just sold my whole collection. Do I have a Black Lotus? I might have one. Ooh, Infect. I remember when that was awesome back in the day. I think one of my favorite decks is Eldrazi just sacrificed the hell out of stuff. And then so me and my friends all made Eldrazi decks, and then I got tired of playing Eldrazi, and I made a Black Vampire Graveyard deck that just is like, and I kill your Eldrazi and I bring it back, and then it makes you like put all of your stuff into your own graveyard, and then I pull all those out against you, and it's mean. What's your Hearthstone Battlegrounds rating? Man, I haven't played Hearthstone since like 2008. All right, where is my, oh wait, I gotta do this. Windowed projector view. I did play a little bit of Arena, but not enough. Like I'd rather, there's something wrong about like paying for, that's one of the ones where you actually buy virtual cards, right? Yeah, no thanks. Like if I buy cards, I want to like hold them in my hand and eventually be able to sell them again and resell market and trade them to people and stuff. And from what I understand, Arena doesn't really do that. What am I looking for? This one. Okay. Opening packs is totally fun. It's better when you open like 15 packs and then build a deck that's like out of 5 of those packs, and you're just passing stuff around like, well, shit, every pack this guy opens, he's going to pull out something with this mechanic or this color, so I better do something different. Like drafts are so much fun. I'm on the wrong, okay. So what are we talking about today, guys? The project's due this weekend, right? Is that right? Where is this project? Project 4, due on the 18th. Can we talk about my day? Yeah, Craig. What are we talking about? All right, Max, take the floor. How was your day? Oh, Beat Saber. Okay. Quiz answers? There is no quiz today. Yeah, I looked at the quiz and I forgot to update it ahead of time. And so it's still talking about stuff. No, if you check Canvas now, look, it's not, where is it? Quiz 8. It's not even published, man. Reported. Lying on stream. No quiz today. I just lied to get you guys into class. I looked at it and it had a bunch of stuff about Redis databases in it because it was used to be a quiz for the next project, and we haven't gotten to the next project yet. So yeah, fun times. So I'll just have to make a really big quiz with double the points next week. So, make sure you show up next Wednesday, right? You want your quiz points, don't you? Oh, thanks, Max. I'll ban you from the subreddit. What subreddit? There's a subreddit? R. Clemson. You can't ban me from R. Clemson. Okay. All right. Am I even in that subreddit? I don't know. Not anymore. I was about to say you don't even know my my Reddit tag, but you probably do. Yeah, it is. Damn it. Okay. So a couple of things about the project. Where did I put that stuff? Into general? Yeah. $10 to my Patreon and I'll live stream it. Do you have a Patreon, really? Uh-huh. I thought they only let reputable people in there. Patreon OWO? Yeah. Uh-huh. Somehow I doubt that. But let's try and keep, I assume it's politics and not you playing card games, so let's try and keep politics out of the class chat. All right, so let's see. Hashing functions. I am the Senate. Highly underrated. Pitch is a highly underrated card game. Okay. Yeah, we're going to get to that after I go over some of this Project 4 stuff that I posted in chat. We'll talk about iRoar, HR Pin, and the trials and tribulations of being the guy that used to run all of the password and login stuff, and the stupid things people kind of ask me to do. Sometimes it'd be like, I want to be it, and I'll get to it later. I'm not even, you're trying to distract me. All right, so hashing function, let's go over here. Let's take a look. Our network security is entirely on Craig's shoulders. I'm just one gatekeeper of many, preventing people from doing stupid things. Let's go over here and let's switch this to our Sublime scene. Let's see what Sublime's got in it. Which window am I in? Am I in this window? Nope. This one. Yep. Okay. Furthest to the right. All right. Because I only have like 5 of them things open. What are we looking at? Don't need any of this. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, we can get rid of that. Okay. So in our server, the redacted server, because I'm not going to show you guys too much more code, we got this compute hash function. And some of y'all have been asking questions about how to verify if it works correctly. And there were some other things where people were having problems creating users and getting them to actually show up later. So let's take a look at this save user function first before we get into the create hash. This save user function, if no file exists on disk, it creates an empty object for the database because it didn't load any object from disk. Otherwise, it loads the file from disk and does a JSON parse to turn it from text file to an actual database file. And then to add this here user object into the database, it tries to assign it into some key in the database. That key is user object.user ID. So if this user object does not have a user ID key in it, it won't get saved correctly. It will, I mean, if you, for example, used username as the key, then every single time you write into this key will become undefined because user object.user ID is undefined if you have user object.username. So I could have actually modified this to have like user name and then the user object, and then you could actually pass in whatever you want and then wherever you want to store it. But I kind of wanted to try and strike home the difference between the user ID variable that we use on the server and that the form submits to us, and then the username actual field. So this is a replay on that same old trope that like server and client can have different variable names, and you kind of have to know where the dotted line is between these two things. So save user, your user object kinda needs to have a user ID. And there is already a sample user object. It is the admin object. And this should be when somebody tries to log in, you should check to see if it matches this admin object before you go try and get user, because this isn't in the database, right? There I go saying right again. And did I mention that user auth, validate username, validate blah, 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 validate hash password. All that's good. So that's, let's see, what is that? It doesn't actually talk about the admin, but yeah, in here, I think I talked about it on the page over here for project 4. Let's take a look. Project 4, post auth. If the username is admin, use the admin object that's available in the global scope instead of calling get user. Okay, so I did mention it somewhere. I didn't mention it in the code, but it's somewhere. Okay, I don't feel too bad about that. So you got to check against the user object. So a good way to make sure that your compute hash function works correctly is, let's go over to our terminal and let's log in. And we can go into our project 4 server directory, and we got our DB file in there and all that stuff. So we can kind of do some simple checks here. Like we can pull in this here. Where is it? We can pull in this admin object. Ooh. Okay, so I need to run node first, right? And then we can pull in the admin object. All right, so we have the admin object available to us. And then say we wrote some sort of const compute hash. And we'll take in a password and a salt. I don't want to close it. What do I want to do? Let's just make it return 1, 2, 3. And so if you want to check what the hell, if your compute password or compute hash thing actually returns the correct thing, you can say, because the password is ADM123, which I don't think I put anywhere in the code, but it's in the Postman stuff. So if I say const pass is ADM123 and const, and we already have the salt that's up there in the admin object, so I can just do console.log compute hash pass comma admin object of or dot salt. So this is how you actually call your compute hash function. And then you just make sure, if you wrote it right, that this thing that it returned matches this thing up here. Does that make sense to everybody? It's a little quick little unit test to make sure that your stuff's working correctly. And there's 1 or 2 different ways to do compute hash. I kind of put all of mine into one line with a whole bunch of dots between everything, but you could just as easily save things in variables and do it on 3 or 4 lines. That works fine too. Let me see, what else did I want to talk about? Anybody have any questions on what I've done here and why it should work? Anybody?
So the admin password is admin123 and not admin?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Let me.
Yeah, it's ADM123.
Yeah, ADM123. And
Cool.
if you look in the Postman, it will actually show you that. Let me spin up Postman and make sure that it's showing the right stuff in OBS before I switch over to it. I have a feeling it's not going to. Hey, awesome, it did. Okay, so if we look at project 4 and we look at, there is a login user auth test with admin user. And if we go over here and we look at this, and we go over to the body, yep. We have a user ID of admin and a password of ADM123. This is what it's going to send to the server to test, right? So if that's what it's sending to the server to test the login, then that's what you should be using to test your code up here, this stuff up here. So that's where I got this. You can just run all that. you can also put the save DB function in there. So if I were to copy out, or save user function. So if I were to copy out save user, nope, not that one, copy. Then I can call save user with an object, and let's make a user object first. So let's say some user const user obj equals, let's give it a user ID. Let's give it a username just to show what that does. ASDF. And then what else do we have in there? Salt. We don't really need all this stuff because it's just writing some random JSON into a file, but salt is salty, and hash or whatever the other key is something. Probably need a comma above that last line. It's not going to like this. Yeah, okay. Let's do this again. Okay, so now we have a user object, and if we do save user, our user object, DB path, oh yeah, DB path is totally a global variable that I didn't copy in. Let me grab that from the code and then run the same thing again, and it says true. So that means it actually wrote something to it. And if we go back and we do cat DB store, then we see that we have undefined, and here's our object. It's undefined because we put username in there instead of user ID. So let's go back to node, wherever our node is, and let's repaste in our save user and our DB path. And let's do const user object equals, and yeah, unexpected identifier. What? Why? Let's call it user2. Okay, whatever. No. Oh, because I spelled const wrong. User ID, ASDF, name, whatever, salt, salty, and we can just put whatever we want in there. Hash, stuff. Save user, user, obj, and it says true, and we exit out, and we go cat db.json or store.json, and we still have that first one in there. So if you screwed up, you might want to delete your database. Cost. Okay. If you had tried to save user with a username in it, you might want to delete your database file because it's got some weird stuff in there. It's probably not going to break anything, but it's also not going to look exactly right. And then we have this whole object is also stored in there. So that's how save user works. And that's how you can test to make sure that you're making user objects correctly. This hasn't constant. So I think I also talked about form validation in Slack yesterday. Let's go take a look at that. I don't think I'm going to show that off, but I can at least talk about it a little bit. So let's go over here and let's go to index.js. So at the very bottom down here, we have this form node.onSubmit. So if this thing, if onSubmit, that function pointer, it's going to get called when somebody clicks the onSubmit button, obviously. If that gets called and it does anything other than return false, the form will submit. So if it returns false, where's our code? Here's our onSubmit code. And here we go. If it returns false because it's not valid, then it returns false and it stops the form submitting. Otherwise, it will return true and the form can submit. it doesn't have to return true. It could just return or just end early. I only do this to kind of make a little bit more sense. But if for some reason your validate function errors out, then it might not go into this. And if it doesn't go into this, you're going to submit the form to the page. And if you submit the form, you're not going to see that console error about validate breaking and throwing an error, because it's immediately going to take your browser to the next place, even if that next place is like the Node.js dynamic endpoint of your choosing, whatever you have this thing set up as. What is it? Dynamic user. So it's posting to dynamic user, right? So this will just happily take whatever data you've passed and take it to the server-side code and give it away to that, and will skip your validation because your validation is throwing an error. There are ways around that. I think most consoles, like when you're viewing let's go over here. Let's open up the console, and if we go to this is where you would find errors in this actual console section. And I believe in most of these you can say persist logs. This is about, and there's something equivalent in Chrome, this is about the only way you're going to see that error, because if without this, it'll display an error and then immediately load to a new page, and when it loads to a new page, it clears out all the logs in the console. So you're never going to see that error. So you may want to turn this on, and then every once in a while, just to make sure you're not seeing errors from like the last time you ran stuff, you can just hit this clear button, or there's an equivalent way to clear it out in Chrome. But you may want to use these things just to make sure you don't miss an error that happens right before the page submits. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any questions? We're just running right through this stuff, aren't we? Okay, let's go back to Sublime. So where are we? This validate thing, we're supposed to show error false at the bottom. Otherwise, we're supposed to show errors for whatever actually broke. So we're supposed to be doing something like, if something isn't right, show error messages dot no password or something like that, and then we return false. So this is every if statement we should check to see. We should be doing negative checks, right? Because otherwise, you don't want to have a ton of code that looks like there's going to be a ton of if statements in there. And if you have something is right, and then you have to move all of this into an else, and it's just going to get ugly, because then you have if something else isn't right, and you have to keep doing the same thing, and you can't just return true in here. I guess if you get all the way through these, you could return true and then have this at the very bottom or whatever, but it's so much cleaner to have all of these checks be negative statements and return false right away. And then you can just copy this, something else, and continue forth and be happy. So I would suggest setting it up this way. These are and yes, I know that error needs error. So this is the way I would suggest doing it, but there is one little trick. So first of all, if you just have that will probably make validate error, because there is no password variable. And if there's no password variable, it's not going to drop in here and return false. And if it doesn't drop in there and return false, you're never going to know that you're not referencing this variable correctly, and you're going to have a bad time. Unless, where's my Slack? Where's my Slack at? You do some ES6, some fancy JavaScript that didn't used to be around. You do something like this. What this says is, this is shorthand for a whole bunch of lines that say const no user equals error messages dot no user. And you do the same thing for no password. And you just keep going down the line. This does this equivalent code for all of these things. You're saying, all right, I know that the thing on the other side of this equals, the thing over here is an object. And since I know it's an object, I'm going to put curly braces around this stuff. And so when I say create, then so I'm saying create a no user const and set its value to error messages.noUser. Create a no password const and set its value to error messages.noPassword. This really only works. You can do it if they're named differently. Like for example, if I wanted to name this no user message, but the key inside error messages is still no user, then you have to do something like that or something like I can't remember exactly how to do it. There's syntax for that. You can do it. It's not as pretty. I would suggest just naming them the same here, but this is a little bit of shorthand. And then these variables exist. And this no password code will actually work. And this error messages.noPassword will also work. It doesn't break error messages. It doesn't delete it. It just pulls stuff out of it and sets it into local consts. Same thing works with a let. Same thing works with a var, but please God, stop using var. Please. Const is the way to go because you really should never be assigning into this thing anyway. So everything's good there. This is called variable, or this is called deconstruction, I believe. So if I go over to the browser, let's see if I can find this on the first Google search. Object deconstruction, deconstructing assignment. Okay, so you can do it if the second side is an array. You can do it like this. And this here ... is something else that we could talk about a little bit if you guys want. Just means, and you don't have to call it rest. So ... is a spread operator. Let's see if I can get back to Sublime. Spread operators are really cool. We are going to get into that for the, we might talk, I mean, you're going to need to know how to use it for the React project. Up until then, it's not really required reading, but it's pretty cool. Spread operator lets us basically, how does the, oh, let me see what exactly it does. Where's the spread? Spread syntax. Let's go back to the browser. Allows an iterable such as an array expression or string to be expanded in places where 0 more arguments or elements are expected, or an object expression is to be expanded in places where 0 more key value pairs are expected. So, for example, we can make sum take 3 arguments here, and then we can make an array of numbers, and we can say spread them out, and it will actually pass them in as arguments. So it breaks down the contents of what's after the ellipses, the triple dots, and puts them in as like 1, 2, 3, you know, first index, second index, third index, all the way out to the end if you're doing an array. The same thing works for key value pairs, hash table arrays, or hash objects, or whatever we're calling them. So first you can do something like, say I wanted to copy 2 objects. I just want to do a shallow copy. You guys know what shallow copy means, right? We aren't making copies of all the children of all the children. We're just taking all the things that are in that first tier of one object and putting them into the second tier. So say if I wanted to, let's go over here, set some syntax, and say we have object 1, and that's going to be equal to A1, B2, C3. And so we have this nice little object. And if I wanted to copy it into an object 2, we're just going to say object 2 is an empty array, and we're going to do get the keys out of object 1. So we make do const keys equals object 1 object dot keys of object 1. So this gives us an array. So now keys equals A, B, C with quotes around each one. There we go. So that's what it sets up for keys. And then we can loop through it for let I equals 0, I is less than keys dot length, I plus plus, object 2 of keys of I equals object 1 of keys of I. And so that's, that's how we used to do it, or, maybe using some array functional operator or something if you wanted to get fancy. We didn't have any of this spread operators jazz yet, so we kind of had to do this stuff our own damn self. And now I can just say const obj2 equals ... obj1. And that does the exact same thing as this code here. All of that stuff is now wrapped up into one line, which is pretty fancy. Furthermore, you can use it with the deconstructing whatever syntax. So if I wanted to say, let's make some variables like const, let's use the same thing. So A, B, and let's give this one more up here. So we got C, let's give it a T5. Okay, cool. So now we have 4 keys, and over here I want A and B to get copied out, and I want it to be equal to object 1. And that'll work just fine. I could also do ... rest, or everything else, or whatever I want. I'm just going to call it rest because that's kind of the normal variable name for this. So this is going to create 3 variables. A equals 1, B equals 2, and rest equals C3 DDD 5. So we've actually used the spread operator to grab all the rest of the stuff out of that. Sometimes you'll even do this. Sometimes you don't even care about A and B. This is cool to like remove things from an object without messing with the object. Like say I want to leave object 1 intact, but I want to make a copy of it, but I only want to make a copy of like everything except for certain keys. Well, I use this syntax to pull out any keys that I don't like, that I really don't need, and then the rest of them end up in here. So now I have the rest is actually the variable that we wanted. Don't care at all about A and B. We just use this syntax to make sure that we can easily make a copy of rest, make a copy of object 1, excluding keys A and B. So kind of fun. This becomes a lot more important when we start dealing with, could you add DDD after rest? Yes. Let me see what that would do. We actually might need to put this into the node thing to, let's see how that would work. Because I think rest would still have DDD in it, and you would have DDD outside of it as its own variable. Let's go over here and find out. So let's make our object 1, and let's make our assignment with this. Rest element must be last element. Ha! And let's just see if I can do, wonder if rest is a word, reserved word. DDD is not defined. Rest element must be the last element. So apparently anything with this ... is thought of as the rest element, even if it's not named rest element. We can test that real quick. Let me remove the DDD from the end and see if everything else still works here. So let's try this. Nope. Copy. Come on. Yeah, so everything else Still has C and DDD in it, but your spread operator has to be the last thing in the array. I suppose you could, after the fact, do everything else of .ddd equals object 1.ddd, and that would kind of give you the same thing, right? So now, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. What we were trying to do was also make a const ddd equals object 1.ddd. And so that now gives us what we were looking for, right? So instead of trying to put an extra variable after the fact, inside the curly brackets, we just do our single or whatever one-off assignments afterwards. Good question. Okay, anybody have any questions about all that nifty syntax? Moving right through it today. Anybody? Nothing. Okay. Well, let's talk about all the different things that Express.js can do for us. So let's go down here. We have these send status functions, right? We also have redirect functions. We're trying to figure out all the different ways that we can send stuff back to the server. Some of y'all may have caught some of the conversation on Slack earlier this week. Some people are having trouble with timeouts or no data coming back to their client. That is because you have somewhere in your code here or whatever, you have a return without calling a res.send status or res.send or res.whatever. If you don't actually use the response object, the res object for short, if you don't use that to send something back to the client and you just end your function, Node.js and Express.js are not going to help you out. They aren't going to like just, oh, well, you didn't tell me to send anything, but I'm just going to send a 200 OK as a default. Nope, does not do that. You have to explicitly, in anything that ends your function, anything that's got a return in it, you got to make sure that you send something back to the client. Otherwise, and remember the client in this case is Nginx. So you aren't going to get a browser timeout. You're going to get an Nginx error page where Nginx timed out, right? Because we have Nginx, it's actually the client talking to our Node.js server on behalf of the browser. So we have these res redirects, we have res redirect, we have res send status. There's also res.send, which I don't have in here, but that also, I don't think res.send, I think it does actually close the connection. But there's one other one in user exists that I think you should know about. It's called res.json. And you just put some data in here, like true, or, you know, maybe even, what is it, get user? And then whatever, you know, whatever your username is. So, you know, you'll have to go figure out how to get the username out of the request object or the user ID or whatever. But nifty little thing, if you return an object and you say not an object, so get user will either return false or it'll return an object. So not false equals true, right? And not object, objct, whatever this object is, right? Let's call it that. So if we have not object, downcasts to Boolean. And if the object is not empty, it downcasts to the Boolean of true, if not empty. So this becomes true, not true, which becomes false. So that's halfway there. I mean, we've taken, all we really care about is if get user returned to us an object or a false. So if we not it once, we know that we're getting a true or false back. And if we not it again, it inverts it yet again. Does that make sense? So we not it twice, once to do the downcast, using the not as our downcasting mechanic, and then the second time to undo the bit flip part of what the not did. So this right here will set exists to true if get user returns an object, and will set exists to false if get user does not return an object. If get user returns false, this will set it to false. If get user returns an object, this will return true. Yeah, it's kind of awesome. I actually found that from reading minified code because that's the shortest amount of characters. If you were ever trying to do comparisons like if some object does not equal false, right? Your minification code is actually just going to do not some object, because it's the shortest character to accomplish the exact same syntactical code. So I can't take credit for that, but it is pretty cool. To go back to what we were originally talking about, res.json works like res.send, except it takes this whole thing in here, this whole JavaScript object. It does a JSON. Let's see if I can. JSON.stringify object, and then it attaches JSON to response body, sets content type to application JSON, and sets status code to 200, sends response. So this JSON thing does all of this fancy stuff for us, and it's pretty handy. The one thing that you really kind of want to happen is this one. Now this thing right here, setting the content type header, which I should say it's a header. And this thing right here, setting the content type header to application JSON, tells Axios a little something. So if we go over to our registration, and I don't think we have an Axios call in here. I was going to make you guys write that. Yep, that's in here. Okay, so you send your Axios call to this thing. And this thing finds the user variable, does this fancy little bit of code. This actually ends the request, so you're good. You can end your function after this. It sends packet back to Axios. And in Axios, let me do our Axios whatever this needs to be, figure it out your damn self, and then we can do then response. This needs an extra set. Ooh, not that many. Make your function however you want. It does not have to be fat arrow notation, but that's the way I like to write it. Response data exists. It actually, because the header was the content type header was application JSON, before Axios passes you the response, it's going to take the body of that response and decode it into data. So normally, if you didn't have that header, the data or the body would actually just be, if you didn't have that header, it would just be a string with your JSON in it. Or something like that. It would be this string here. Let me get rid of that. But since, let's say if no content type header, I believe it's response.data, or it might be response.body, or those might be the same thing. You'll have to look up the Axios docs to be sure, but it's neither here nor there, because if you use res.json on the server side, then data will actually be the JSON decoded JavaScript object. So you can just directly reference exists true or false. And since you can directly reference it in one line, and the thing that this is supposed to do is use the response data exists key to call set username status. So that's pretty much all your .then needs to be. Does that make sense to everybody? Because we used res.json on the server, we don't have to do anything but just pass this Boolean directly into set username status. Done. Thank you very much. Any questions on that? Yeah, I feel like some of y'all probably figured it out that as I get close to the project being due, I just run out of stuff to talk about, so I give away more tips on how to do the project. It's like, all right, well, if you turned it in early, you get the added benefit of me looking over your code and telling you, what all you did wrong and if you want to resubmit it and all that stuff. Awesome. But if you wait to the last minute, maybe I'll give you a little bit of some tips. But then you're also got it hanging over your head for like a whole week, just going, oh crap, is he going to give me enough help to where I can write this all in like 2 days, or am I just screwing myself over? So it's a gamble, you got the gamble. Most of y'all are taking that gamble from the amount of Project 4 submissions I'm seeing so far. So congratulations. I hope it works out for you. And that's all I was talking about in Slack. Does anybody have any other questions for Project 4 or any questions about all the stuff I've talked about today? Anything at all? Or should I just go rambling on about some password security stuff? What advantage does Axios have over just plain Jsfetch? Let's go look that up, because where are my console logs on server side going? If you're running it with service, it's gonna be kind of hard to track down, which is why there is a systemctl command like journalctl or something like that. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Saw mine printed to terminal. Yep, if you use npm start, please stop using node server.js, because remember, that's not going to set your environment variables right, and you're going to have a bad time. You're going to pizza instead of, what is it, French fry instead of pizza? You're going to have a bad time? Yeah. So remember to use npm start, but yes, it will print to the terminal, and pretty much that's all you need to know until like you got everything ready to go and you're ready to just leave it running for me to grade. Then that's when I suggest you run it as a systemctl, like service start thing, because the only real benefit to service start is it runs in the background even when you close your session. I guess another benefit is like you can use the same terminal window to like edit the files on the server without having to background Node.js or something like that. You just do service start, edit the file, and then do service restart and edit the file some more and service restart. And that's all well and good, but you're gonna have some trouble finding. Let's see if I can find it. Sudo, let me go to the right window. There we go. Sudo service project for status. Is it running? Project 4 dot servers, project 4 server. Okay. So it does actually show us a little bit of logs here, and that's pretty nice. But what we want is to see all the logs. And I believe it's journal, what is it? Journal CTL project for server service. Nope. All right, let me Google. Let's find out. Show logs. How user view manipulate systemd. Yes. No. Let's this one. Journal CTL, sudo journal CTL. Okay, maybe I need to do sudo default logs. How do I pass in a service name? Okay, let's try journal show logs for service. Systemctl status, yeah, oh, okay. Journal CTL-U, okay, and I probably need to run that with sudo. That might be what I was missing. So let's go back to the terminal. Let's do journal CTL-U with a sudo at the front. and project for server. And there you go. That's how you can see all your logs if it's running in the background. It's not the best thing. I suggest using npm start, and if you want to code as well, use npm start in one terminal and open up a second terminal in SSH to your server and play around with it there. For those of you using VS Code, you might not enjoy that, but you know, I wouldn't suggest using VS Code anyway, so that's on you. Okay, and what was the other question? Jsfetch. So Jsfetch is actually kind of new. The old school way to do these sorts of things were XHR, XML HTTP request, and XML HTTP request is kind of a beast to play with. Axios is better. Fetch exists now, but Axios works exactly the same way on the server. Like you can include a Node.js Axios package as well, and it works exactly the same way and returns promises and all that stuff. I don't know if Fetch returns promises, so let's look into that. Jsfetch API. Let's see how this works. Differs from the jQuery Ajax. Fetch Blit does return a promise, so this is nice. Does it let us pass in extra data? Yeah, we can do an async function. Yeah, okay, it does let us pass in extra data. Okay, so maybe Fetch is just as good. Fine. But does Fetch work in Node.js? You have to get a separate package, and then it will work the same way. So Axios, let's see what the internet has to say about Axios versus Fetch. Fetch URL, then blah. But it's not the data you're looking for. This response from the server letting you know your request went through fine, great, but you can't do much with that. To get your data, you have to pass it to JSON first, and then you can see it. Yeah, yeah. Now it's the data. Let's see how it handles with Axios. You just get it. You can cut out the middle step of passing results. So Axios does read the JSON header that we were talking about, the application JSON header, whereas Fetch does not. So it's got a couple of like nice, nice to have features on it, and it is nice to work with the exact same code server and client. In index.js, I'm not sure how to access the attributes of the element. Where does that data come from in the validate function? Let me go back to Sublime and see if I know what you're talking about. In the validate function, you're trying to access the attributes of the element. So you're trying to get the contents of the input, right? Where's my validate function? Yeah, okay. So the input is just a document element, and if we look at here, each one has a unique ID on it. So we can do get element by ID, username and name and password and confirm password, and that'll give us a handle on these 4 input DOM nodes, and each one of them just has a dot value, and it's not even a function. You just call whatever DOM node dot value and you'll get the contents of that text box. So down here, wherever our validate function is, let's get rid of this crap. We don't need that anymore. Const user name equals document dot get element by ID username dot value. Rinse and repeat for all the things. You just look at the ID value in the HTML and you use it accordingly here. Any other questions? No quiz today. I screwed up and didn't update the quiz. So it's a quiz from last year that has questions about Redis databases, which aren't till the next project I haven't even started talking about yet. So I just kind of canceled the quiz. I set it to unpublished. So hopefully you guys won't get annoying emails about it. But this weekend I'll have to go through and make up move around some quizzes, make sure everything still looks good. Make sure that, I'm being slightly nice and giving you quizzes on stuff I've actually taught. Seems like the right thing to do. Form action for the login page should be ... user/auth. So let's look at this one is ... dynamic/user. And it's doing a post to that. And if we go look at our server, the thing that it's posting to is app.post to /user. Remember that dynamic bit gets added on by the proxy layer in Nginx. And that Nginx strips off dynamic and sends it to just user. So ... /dynamic/user in the form sends it to /user here. Does that give you a hint? If this is user auth, you probably need ... /dynamic/user auth. Right? And you also need to set your method to, well, you can guess by what I'm highlighting right here. And while y'all are thinking about other questions, I got somebody pinging me at work. Okay. Anything else you guys want to know about? Anything? Okay. I suppose if y'all want to stick around and ask me questions about my time, well, it'll be good for you guys to like actually sit here. How long does the project take on average? I mean, I wrote it from scratch and it took me about a day. And you have starter code, but you also don't know what you're doing like I do. So it's probably going to take you, I would say it took me like 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours to get everything, including like getting the service working on and getting all the packages installed and like kind of starting from scratch on that front and starting from scratch with all the different like the login page, the registration page, getting all the HTML set up and all that stuff. You got a lot of that going for you, but you also aren't used to writing JavaScript and HTML like I am. So it might be like 8 to 10 hours. I don't know. If confirm password is empty, but well, okay, so if the password is empty, you should show no password. But if the password is not empty and confirm password is empty, then confirm password and password do not match. Which is this one. Just speed run the project. Any percent speed run. Yeah, let's see it. Also, I know WoW just came out, but maybe you guys shouldn't be trying to write this while playing WoW because you might run into the same problems that some of our lucky students ran into while they were taking a quiz. Yeah, you just check if it matches because you already know that at that point in your code that the password itself is not empty, so you know that they're not going to match if it's empty. Yes. And so I'm going to transition a little bit to some real world stuff. Somebody was asking in the random channel, and I figure I could see if I can find that. HTTPS / idp.clemson password. And let's go over here. And yes, I know my current password. And look at this. Wonder what this thing does. Well, that looks pretty. Wow. Doesn't that just look really similar? And if we go to inspect element and we go look at our sources, how do I do that over here? And let's just where is it? Memory application. That's where. Yep. Now I still have to refresh it. Okay. Let's look at main. Look, hey, it's got it's got the same thing there. Wonder why that is. But where is our JavaScript code? I think it's actually in. Oh God. So this is going to be a trip down memory lane for me, because I'm pretty sure, yep, I just wrote the JavaScript directly into the page. And also, I used vars all over the place. Not really happy about that. But, yeah, ew, PHP is right, yeah. But yeah, hey, it does kind of, there's a strength check function. Don't use vars. Do as I do. Do as I say, not as I did 10 years ago when I wrote this. And also don't put JavaScript in your HTML. Reference it as a separate file. God. Yeah, this looks kind of, look, even the comments. It's like I kind of, when I was writing this, Zoom has autocorrect. Yeah, it's like when I wrote our project forward that I just kind of went on here and grabbed some of my old code and rewrote it a little bit. These are the answers to the project. Are they? Are they? So we do some other things. We actually add in more stuff to banned words. We make sure that you're not allowed at all to use Unicode or not Unicode, like emoticons and stuff like that. Can't use like multi-byte characters, because this system will totally take it. And then we sent emoji code, whatever. This system, like the password reset, will totally take it, and so you might even be able to log into some things, and then you get to some other things and you can't log in at all. So if you tried to put a smiley face in there and your keyboard actually put an emoji smiley face in there for you because you're resetting your password from your phone or whatever, this one's actually going to break. Best password is emojis. And then there are extra words like Clemson, Tiger, and whatever your current username is that we're adding into the password. Either we're adding it in as extra arguments to the ZXCVBN call, or we're just saying if you have any of these in your password at all, we're just rejecting it right out. Hey, here's kind of the value stuff I showed you, and a whole bunch of code that you don't need to really look at. And then there's our add event listener. So yeah, this totally, I wrote this when I was first figuring out how to do password strength managers or password strength checkers. And before this, Clemson had your password has to have an uppercase. Your password has to have a lowercase. Your password has to have a symbol, but only one of these 5 symbols, not any of the rest of them. And then we weren't checking for Unicode or emoji code or anything like that. So it was not the best time. And then because we weren't really sure of how strong your password is, and we didn't really have that password entropy check that the library gives us now, we also made users reset their password every year for students and every 6 months for employees. So that sucked. Is it correct horse battery staple? Well, look at that. Huh. All right. I didn't know you could do that in Zoom, or indeed emojis in general. Well, I'll take it. Some other things. that they recently, and well, not recently, till a few years ago, they had was this page. This page used to make you set up never really cared until right now. This page used to make you, like, before you could use the account recovery, like, hey, I don't know what my password is anymore. I don't want to get up and go to the help desk. I'm like stuck on my couch. I don't want to move, but I have to do some work on this project. So let me reset my password from home. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of a big security hole because, like, we have a help desk for doing this stuff and they can actually look at your ID and make sure that you are who you say you are, but fine, I'll write something. And so they made me write something that took security questions. And if anybody's ever really thought about it, especially for people that are my age and younger and have been on social media for like our whole lives, or at least ever since we owned a car, it's anybody that's your friend, your roommate, or any sort of advanced persistent threat like spear phishing or state actor, they're gonna know all of the answers you pick, unless you just pick random things that aren't really the answers, and then you have to remember that shit. That's not great. So also, it's just you can brute force it. It's like if you had 3 answers, you just take those 3 text box and add them together into one string, and then you just like go through and try and brute force this string, and you're pretty sure that it's not going to have too many numbers in it. And if you can be pretty smart about it, it's like, what's your first car? Okay, well, if that was the question you set, how much entropy would it take to roll through every type of car, make, and model, right? And especially if it's like, what's your first car? What's the model of your first car? I mean, there's maybe 100 different car models, maybe like definitely less than 1,000, right? So you can roll through all of those in a brute force attack real quick. Not to mention, like, anybody that knows you or can spearfish you or can get any information about you can just reset your password. We did have one extra step when we had the password recovery that worked like that. We would actually try to text your new password to you, or we'd say like, your new password is this plus the last 4 of your social. Again, social security numbers are all out there, and some people don't have social security numbers because we have international students here, duh. So that didn't work out well, and turns out that advanced persistent threat ATPs or APTs are really good at hijacking SIM cards now. So they just get the text that was sent to you. They already know your, like, or the friend or roommate that knows all these things about you may also have access to your phone if you leave it unlocked on the couch for a few minutes while you go to the bathroom or something, and boom, and it's pretty damn unsecure. So this didn't fix all of that, but it fixed some of that. We just asked for your username, your XID, and your date of birth, just enough to stop like the really annoying script kiddie hackers. And then we pump it through a Duo. So as long as you can still approve a Duo notification, you're good to go. And I think it might still be some random thing plus the last 4 of your social. I'm not going to reset my password, so I'm not going to go through this, but because Lord knows it could actually like display the password on the screen, and that would be great. But yeah, so a little bit of how to do website and registration security and how not to do website and registration security. And there is also, let's see, what is it? Password shame. Password list of shame? Password policy hall of shame. Where is it? Plain text offenders. There was a GitHub repo. Hold on. Where is this thing? Shaming sites with dumb password rules. Here we go. And you can just look like, hey, that's pretty dumb. You can go down, look at all these things, all of these different pages that are being shamed for their terrible password rules. Some of them even say like, here's why it was terrible. And some of them are, your password must be between 6 and 14 characters and contain 1 numerical value. Anything that has a max like this, you can kind of be sure that it's probably talking to like an old school mainframe on the back end. like, or that they just wrote a really terrible database where they have like fixed width columns or some crap like that. Like, why would you ever have an upper limit? It certainly means they aren't hashing it, because after you hash something, it all comes out to the exact same length. Now you want to give like some like, not, I mean, you don't want them to upload like a 2 megabyte password, because that's going to tax your system. So you want to have some like intelligent limit of like 250 characters or something, where it's like, if you're using a password that's more than 250 characters, rethink your life. But 14, anything that's small like that, they're either talking to an old school IBM mainframe, or they're trying to like use a fixed width database, and they're certainly not hashing your passwords if they're using a fixed width database. It's just, so you can see all kinds of fun stuff. And now I'm just rambling for a while, so it's 5:15. You guys get out of here. Enjoy your no quiz Wednesday, and I'll see y'all on Monday. I suppose I'll see y'all on Monday. I haven't looked to see if we have Monday off yet. I don't think we do. But in any event, I'll see you next time I see you. You don't have Monday off. All right, good. Neither do I. You're welcome, Zach. Peace, Ethan. What's on Monday? I don't know. I have to figure that out. You're welcome, Ashton and Nick. Y'all too. Have a good one.